All right. Does it say recording?
For me, it says recording up the top. Yeah.
All right. I'm recording it. All right.
We're ready.
All right. I'll do the intro and then.
Is this all going out?
No, I'll trim this bit.
Trim this bit.
See, I've lost that note. It's still there. All righty. It's still there.
You got it disappears and then you put the mouse back on it.
Yeah, but it wasn't doing that before. Now it's back.
I think it's the 5G, man. The 5G is cooking everyone. Scrambling our DNA.
Where is the question? I sent it to you, didn't I? I'll just fucking read that. Welcome to Quarantine Culture, where the boys here, along with everyone else in the world, we're trying to learn how to use Zoom. So we're going to use this as a test to see if we can make some YouTube content on Zoom, because we actually had a good... Yeah, so, yeah, how are you doing, Charles?
Zoom.
How's your first day of home been? How's your first day of homework been?
I slept for 11 hours. I woke up, I did a puzzle for 90 minutes, drank 2 coffees. Then I finally got down and did some work because I was just fucked. I was absolutely cooked. I feel like the stress and anxiety of the last few days made me have this massive crash, and I just died in the ass. Yeah. My appetite's back. I'm not feeling like nauseous. So I think I don't know all the specifics of the hormones and chemicals and physiology of what happened, but I know that high amounts of stress. And then I started to accept reality as it is, and then crashed hard. Slept for 11 hours. So I didn't sleep very well for a few nights.
I'm feeling that too, for sure. We're going to try. There you go.
Oh, I learned a new song on guitar too. I learned Time of Your Life, Green Day. Crazy.
Oh, nice. All right, crazy. We'll bring that on some point. So we actually got a question from DC _ strength coach on Instagram. He DM'd me personally, and he said, "Hey, Jamie, I've seen your spreadsheet tutorial for the RPE back off programming." And then he said, "Do you reckon it's doable for ramping sets within the program?" So I shot back a question to him and I said, to program for RPE or to program for ramping percentages across the block? And he said, RPE, or would you use percentages for that? And then I said, well, we should probably unpack this a little more. And I said, we'll do a video on it. So that's what we're going to do, a video on it. And the question is going to be why we don't ramp percentages across a block and why we prescribe the same RPE week in, week out. That is the open question, why we don't change our RPEs. He's
asking why we wouldn't ramp up RPEs, like go like 6, 7, 8 to then 7, 8, 9 to then 8, 9, 9, like that, like a linear ramping of RPEs.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much, and we don't do that. What we do is pretend it's a 5-week block and we're working in the 7 to 8 RPE range, the whole block. We don't change the RPEs. Or if we're ramping at 6, 7, 8, 9 every week, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So why do we do that?
We do that because the human is the variable. So we keep everything constant and fixed, and then the human being just undulates. So that would be load. The load undulates, taking into account all other variables and factors. And like for me, example, yesterday I felt like weak, really, really weak, which is pretty understandable because of the high amount of stress and anxiety that has been experienced for the last few days from all this phase 1 of quarantine shit going on. So it allows us as individuals to really sort of ride the variables that take place every day. Good example is myself again last week. I had a really good week, hit some massive PRs. So we keep everything fixed because that is the variable that should undulate, not...
Yeah, the human's ability to express force is what's undulating across the block, not the block itself.
The best way to put it is we're just looking for a stimulus, and typically that stimulus needs to be in a close proximity to failure, somewhere 6 RPE and above. So 3 to 4 to 2 reps out from failure. So that's why we keep it fixed, where we will have 7 to 8 RPE. And then on any given day, taking into account all variables, we'll hit a 7 to 8 RPE. That is an adequate stimulus for that given day. And then that is what drives adaptation, not trying to manipulate too many variables across a block, which is also why we don't use percentage-based training, because percentage-based training is assuming that an individual will respond linearly to a program. And as we know, especially, I think percentage-based can be quite useful early on with beginners, because it's very motor skill acquisitional based. Like they're just getting better from getting, they're getting stronger and getting better just from getting better at the movements. They're not really at their top threshold of output yet. But as you become more intermediate, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years onwards, I think you do need to use an RPE-based system of training, because the fluctuations in day-to-day performance and week-to-week performance can be a lot bigger, especially with, like, you have a couple shit nights of sleep and you're a 280 kilo squatter. There's a lot more potential that your load selection will be affected a lot greater than a beginner who just started barbell strength training 6 weeks ago.
Yep.
So yeah, I know, like, yeah, a lot, you see that a lot with a lot of top sort of lifters that have 450 plus Wilks.
Yeah.
500 Wilks. Yeah.
So back to the specific question, we understand why we prefer RPE training and why we do believe that you should probably be transitioning to RPE training sooner than later. I do believe, and that's another question, why RPE for beginners isn't ideal. I think that's a misconception as well. Maybe we could do another video on that as well. But why we don't increase your relative intensity, your RPE across the block also is because proximity to failure is the stimulus to get better at lifting weights. It's the stimulus for hypertrophy with obvious reasons. We don't really stimulate high threshold fast twitch motor units until we get to like that RPE 6 range, unless we're doing things at really high velocities. It's just not going to happen. So we need to be in that close proximity above an RPE 6 just to stimulate the motor units that are needed for hypertrophy. And then also when we talk
strength.
Yeah, well, when we talk about strength, what are the 3 factors that determine strength? We have skill acquisition, which can happen really at any intensity. You can practice squatting, although the expression of heavy squats is best practiced with heavy squats. Yes.
Yeah. I feel you can break skill acquisition into 2 components. Like, you can learn from light loads, but in the day, if your goal is powerlifting, you need to have practice with heavy weights at some point. You're not going to get better at lifting heavy weights doing 60% squats. Yeah. Only your skill will improve, but not your skill to express or control heavy weights.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. So that's the first thing. The second thing is obviously how much muscle mass we have. And we just discussed hypertrophy. So we need to be above an RPE 6 for hypertrophy. And then finally, it's how well our brain is, or how good our brain is at actually activating our muscles and our motor program and all that sort of stuff to express the skill. So your skill acquisition, muscle mass, and then the efficiency of your central nervous system and your brain to activate the muscles to produce output and produce force. All of that has to happen above an RPE 6. It doesn't have to progressively get heavier across the block to get the stimulus for strength or hypertrophy. We can actually stimulate within the same RPE range. So it doesn't really have to change. There's no necessary, it's not necessary for the block to get relatively harder. You can still sit at a 7 or 8 RPE the entire block and it'll be fine.
It's the adaptation it's a moving target. So it's not like a fixed point where you have to hit exactly that. Like we can't, I don't know if there's a way to measure it, but like hitting an 8.5 RPE or a 7.5 RPE probably drives the same amount of adaptation, potentially. Like, I don't know, we're never going to be able to measure that, I don't feel, where one is better than the other. It's that range that we need to fall in, and somewhere between a 6 to 9, we usually say. Typically, we avoid 10s, maybe with small isolation work, bicep curls, stuff like that, but sometimes on bench, I do program RPE 10s on bench, but never with squats or deads. Just because I feel the risk goes up for the potential chance of someone hurting themselves with very little reward increase. You're probably getting the same benefit doing an 8.5 RPE, being a little bit out from failure compared to a 10 without as much risk. Whereas with obviously small isolation work, tricep push down, bicep curls, lateral raises, stuff like that, very low risk of potentially hurting yourself. So you can push closer to failure for a couple sets.
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
I think people need to stop thinking that their weight always has to be going up. We don't measure strength that way. I know it's good stroke to the ego, but strength is really measured when you do your 1 or 2, 3 comps a year. That is your sort of very big key indicator of, am I getting stronger? And more advanced lifters are not going to get strength improvements week to week all the time. I don't know. I felt that very much with my bench for the last few months. It's sort of just been like this. And then last week, last 2 weeks, I've hit some massive PRs, but it's been 3 months of just this. And I think the more experience you get, the more you're going to see of that. So that's why you just let the intensity, the stimulus, drive adaptation, and then how much volume that person can handle. They're the two variables that you probably want to control the most.
And those you're controlling those not in a week to week fashion. You're controlling those, or we believe, in a block to block fashion. Yeah. So you might have one block of training 4 to 6 to 8 weeks at RPE 7 to 8, and then your next block of training at RPE 8 to 9. That might be something that you implement. However, we don't believe that having an increasing intensity every single week is necessary. From one block to the next block. And we call it phase potentiation. It's one of our principles from our programming, our base level programming stuff. So phase potentiation from one block at 7 to 8 will potentiate your next block at an 8 to 9 RPE, rather than 1 week potentiating the next week, potentiating the next week, potentiating the next week. You probably need a longer time scale for that to apply.
Yeah, it's block to block is how we sort of structure that stuff. And the main thing we do is obviously we develop the microcycle first, and then depending on how long that microcycle runs for will be depending on how long the individual can actually handle that microcycle week to week. So it might be 4 weeks for some individuals. It could be up to 8 weeks for other individuals. So that all those variables are dependent on the individual, they're not fixed. They're not everyone gets 8-week linear based programming models. And that's why we don't like that. We opt to steer away from that and individualize the programs a little bit more on those factors.
Yep. Cool. Yeah. Nice. I'm happy
I hope
with
that makes sense.
Yeah. If you got any questions, drop them below, because we can do these now that we are not in each other's pockets 24/7. We can do these all the time. So if you have any questions, drop them below. Your turn.
Oh, so I hope that made sense, because I feel at the start we sort of, I think I not rambled, but I don't think it was as clear and concise as it could have been. But hopefully you got something out of that, because sometimes it's the best way to get an answer, is just let your brain ramble.
Yeah.
Let your brain
just let it go. Let it fly. If you have any questions, for us, we're expecting the gym to be shut now. We've accepted 6 months. Anything less is a bonus. So if you've got anything you want us to discuss while we're in quarantine away from each other and isolation away from each other, this is how we're going to do it. We'll drop these videos on a couple times a week on YouTube. We might even see if we can get them on IGTV as well. But if you've got any questions, let us know. This is probably the new style of content that you could get ready for on our YouTube channel. Podcast will be back next week.
Done.
See you later.
That's it. Ciao.